What is going on, everyone? Tim from Tirfon Orbital. So I want to do a pretty quick rundown video on an install commission that I recently finished. This is for a 7Chambers SKIG. Now, I've done the SKIG variants before. In fact, during this install, I learned something. Technically, 7Chambers calls their SK Hilt the SKIG. I've been calling the Corbanth Hilt the SKIG as well, but I guess it's not officially known as that. It gets so convoluted with some of the naming schemes of these hilts, but SKIG stands for Star Killer In-Game. It is the in-game hilt that we see. It's the exposed crystal version of the hilt, but I've always called the SKIG, the one with the crystal. So anyhow, like I said, I've done installs on SKs before. I've only done installs on the Corbanth variant, the V2 and the V3. I did a similar install on this one in that we added extra brass crystal chamber modules. I also added some steel bars to go in front of the crystal chamber, and I also weathered this. So I gave it relatively the same treatment that I usually do with the Corbanth ones, but this was a little bit different install-wise, right? And I'd like to talk about that as well because I did have to figure out how to get some of my leads past that crystal chamber. It was a little bit different setup than the Corbanth version, right? So, without further ado, let's talk about the chassis first, and then we will do a demo, right? So here we go. Let's come into Fusion. Here's the chassis that I designed for this build. It is a static chassis. It has held in place in the upper part of the hilt with this nipple, and there's also a set screw in the upper part of the hilt. But yeah, greeblies along each side. There's 28, just over 28 millimeters on the inside of this grip. So I had plenty of room to play around with greebly work. There is a 28 millimeter speaker down here. That's from Smuggler's Outpost. I printed off this chassis in clear translucent resin. And then I taped off this grill section, did a pass with Tamiya rubber black, left it taped off, did a pass with rub and buff, right? Took my masking off and I painted this upper grill black. My intention was to have NeoPixel shine through in just these circles, but the NeoPixels are so bright, you still get some bleed through, right? So I wanted to test that out. I've got a channel under here for two 2020 NeoPixel strips. Here's another channel for my wire management. Proffie board sits here. It does slide up underneath this lip to secure it in place. Around back, we've got our battery tray here and kill switch up top. And that's it. Nice and simple setup on that static chassis. Let's come up top and take a look at this hilt, right? So here it is. This is the SKIG from 7Chambers. Really, really beautiful hilt. So I have seen this hilt numerous times. You know, a lot of installers have done these before. In fact, you know, I think Jeremy from Solo Sabers has done probably 3 dozen of these, probably more, right? This to me, the 7Chambers SK has always been like the gold standard SK, in my opinion, right? Because what sets it apart from the other SKs is this section up here. So 7Chambers has made this emitter section modular. So you can remove this, right? And it's made out of steel. So that makes heat staining really, really easy. You cannot get this heat stain effect with aluminum. So a lot of, in fact, I think almost all Star Killer variants that are out there have this aluminum top. There might be a Solos, I think Solos Hold might do an SK with a titanium or an aluminum top like this. But yeah, I really, really love that about the 7Chambers SKIG. So other than that, this hilt arrived brand new. So I did weather it myself. The client did request weathering and to go all out in the crystal chamber. So we did both of those. I did 2 passes of aluminum black on this guy. And then I came back and did some burnt sienna wash in some of these crevices just to make it look like it's got rust and it's dirty, right? I say this with the Corbanth SKs as well. Anytime I have steel hardware and I'm weathering, I try to heat stain it. I mean, it just makes it look a little bit more dynamic, and it just makes it look a little bit more used. So all the hardware has been heat stained as well. In the crystal chamber, so the upper and lower parts of this crystal chamber are both from Shtok Custom Works. They are in brass. Got these from Shapeways. Behind that quartz crystal is another brass piece. It's like a brass grill behind that crystal. I've done these before in the Corbanth SK build, so this was exactly the same. I created a custom mount for this bottom one, mounted my NeoPixel into that, so we've got one NeoPixel shining up. The upper mount, I actually utilized that mount from 7Chambers, but just affixed that brass to that piece. And there's a NeoPixel in there as well. So we've got two NeoPixels shining into that crystal. And that's it, right? So wiring this was a little different. So with the Corbanth SK, you put your chassis in, right? And you've got a penetration in the hilt just underneath the shroud in this section. So what you can do is you bring your leads in, you can come up to that penetration inside the switch box, hide your leads that way, wire up your switches, and then up here there's another penetration that goes into the upper part of the hilt. So it makes wire management and hiding wires a little bit easy on the Corbanth version. On this version, there is no penetration up here. There wasn't where I needed it, right? There is one down here. So I guess the idea, right, is to have your leads still come up behind the crystal chamber. And I've seen that before. I mean, you can hide your wires with some steel mesh or, you know, maybe some black heat shrink, right, to help hide them. I wanted to have no wires behind this crystal chamber. So what I had to do was bring my leads up past the switch box, and I made a penetration in the hilt myself under this shroud, so I could bring my other 3 leads for the PCB emitter and my other leads for the NeoPixel up through there, right? And that way I can have no wires in the crystal chamber. So it was a little different. I did have to make some modifications to the hilt to wire it up like that, but I didn't want to have any visible wires at all, right? So to use this hilt, let's take the grip off. This is a tight build. So on the inside of this grip is 28 millimeters. That speaker is also 28 millimeters, so it's a tight fit, right? So get your grip off. Spring side is your negative. Put the flat part of your battery, negative side down, hit that kill switch. So there's those accent NeoPixel strips. I've got different animations for each font for that guy. What else we got? Yeah, so each animation's probably washed out on the camera. Different animations for each font on that, as well as the crystal chamber has different animations as well. So once you get your battery in, put your grip on. Let's come down to the bottom here. So you just screw that grip on until it stops, and then you're ready to go. Let's see what's going on here.
Hello, Zuko here.
Oops. So let's put a blade in it. I could do that all day. So blade retention on this is a little different as well, right? So initially, what I think the idea is to have this black thumb screw as your blade retention. I utilize that as my PCB holder. So to the client, this black thumb screw is holding in that NeoPixel connector, right? So don't unscrew this. That's actually helping to secure that NeoPixel pins in there, the NeoPixel PCB. So I actually, much like the Corbanth SK, the screw that's holding on the bunny ears is also your blade retention screw, right? So make sure that's backed out all the way or far enough. Slide your blade so it's not. Slide your blade in so it's resting on those PCB pins, and then tighten your sets. And then you're ready to go. sounds great. Let's see what else we got.
Ray Skywalker.
So there's that crystal. Each font config has a different animation on that crystal. Great Hilt. Great. Oh, my blade wasn't tightened all the way here. There we go. Rad. Really, really nice hilt. So that's it before I waste anyone else's time, right? So that is the SKIG from 7Chambers. Again, this is the first time I've put hands on this particular hilt. It was a little bit different to install than the Corbanth SKs that I've done in the past, but I think we achieved what we wanted to with, trying to hide some of those wires in the crystal chamber, etc. So to the client, thank you very much for trusting me with your build. To the viewers, everybody, thank you very, very much for your support and watching. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Thanks for watching, everybody.